that as a result of that agenda, the fact that you now in your churches today in Dallas are still bowing down to white gods and white mamas of God and all of that is a direct consequence of that. Listen. The fact that you put your black child on this white fat man's knees the day after Thanksgiving and say, please bring me that, is a direct consequence of that. The fact that you scholars are incapable of standing up and defending the Afrocentric paradigm because you're too committed to supporting the Eurocentric way of thinking is a consequence of this. Listen, the fact that you think that classical art and classical music and classical literature cannot be understood unless it comes from the Greeks or from the Romans or from the French or parlez-vous le français or sprechen Sie some Deutsch or do something that will let you understand that it's European. The fact that our thinking is so locked in, it is locked in because we have taken in totally, literally whole hog, that white folks are in fact God, great and superior. And the struggle we have right now, to get ahead of the story, the struggle that we have of confrontation, the struggle we have of moving to build and establish things for ourselves is the fact that psychologically our mindset still operates under the assumption that white people are right and superior no matter what. No matter what. So economically, politically, intellectually, and spiritually, that is the kind of mindset that leads to such great difficulty for us and for our people. The other aspect of the paradigm was an aspect that what is material is more real than what is spiritual. The concept that the visible is more valid and more real than the invisible. This was another characteristic of this, the Columbian paradigm. It said that since we are here and since we now occupy this piece of land, by virtue of our occupation of it, it makes it rightfully ours. As long as we can get you off of it and you no longer occupied, therefore you cannot claim it as yours. So the objective then was to physically remove the occupants and to physically replant oneself, because within this new paradigm, the only thing that you needed to prove ownership and justifiable presence was your physical manifestation at that spot. Now, this is so different from the way that the Native American people conceptualized their land and the way that African people understood their land. They understood that the land belonged to no occupant. The land belonged to all of the occupants. It had been won, it had been given from the hands of the invisible giver, and had been maintained by the collective maintenance of the ancestral community, which still had earned, gained, and owned it by virtue of their work that nobody could take away. That the land was God's land. The environment was God's environment. What do you mean you own the river? Damn if you own the river, God owns the river. You understand? You see, but the materialism created this perception that we can claim authority and authenticity by our greater material manifestation. Not only did that start in 1492, that was true in 1991 and 1992. So we then have the right to go and bomb Iraq or bomb Kuwait or bomb anybody we want to if they are in fact messing with our materials. Now I can claim it as a value, but the bottom line is that they got our stuff and we want our stuff back. Now to show you, I want you to watch this now because I want to see how it works. The claim is that a higher value was being defended. The infiltration and encroachment of this barbaric man named Saddam Hussein against these poor little primitive people called the Kuwaitis, most of whom drove a Mercedes that they would wreck and leave on the side of the road. Most of whom weren't even in Kuwait because they were living in sweet hotels in London and in Cairo and in Rome and in New York City because they had so much money they didn't know how to get to Kuwait. They didn't even know where Kuwait was. They didn't want to go to no Kuwait. They wanted to go to New York, Paris, you know. So the idea was the idea of being able to claim a value of defending the oppressed. Ain't that a trip? Defending the oppressed as the justification for invasion. Now, if they wanted some oppressed, black folks in South Africa were so oppressed you didn't even need an example. I mean, if you want some oppression, look, you didn't even have to cross the ocean. Go down to Haiti. No, don't go down there. Just let the Haitians come in. Just let them come in. That's all. If you can be concerned about injustice. In fact, look around your door. Black folks dying around your door. Infant mortality rate of African Americans almost 3 times that of the rest of the nation. African Americans dying in the streets, all kinds of diseases, no health care for people who don't have good jobs or good insurance. What do you mean, the oppressed? Look in your front door. Whew, that was close. Whew. All right. All right. All right, calm down, Akbar. The idea that might is right, the idea that might is right was a fundamental part of the materialistic assumption. So America could conceive, the post-Columbian America is conceived as the world's greatest power because of its might. Not because of its values, but because of its materials. Not because of its humanitarianism, but because of its materials. There is no concern about suffering. I mean, like, watch the Somalians die at 5,000 per day. No concern whatsoever. Even watching watching the Bosnians die, even their own people. I'm just telling you about, it ain't even a color thing with them. It is about might is right and our power is ultimately what's important. So put the Muslims to death. By the way, now you see, the Muslims and the Africans were tied together in that Moorish thing. And so Islam, even before, all the way back to the Crusades, even before there was a black power movement, there was an opposition to Islam in the same way there was an opposition to people of color. Because Islam, as well as black faces, was viewed as an intrinsic threat to the integrity of the Christian European Caucasian people. And one of the reasons that they worked so hard to keep Islam out of this country for so long, despite the freedom of religion, was because they feared it and hated it. And they didn't know a great deal about it, but what they did know told them that it had a liberating possibility in it. Because they saw that people who were exposed to it didn't sit quietly down. They saw, look, go study the slave revolts, the Maroons. Go study the slaves that gave the white folks the most trouble. In South America, in Brazil, they decreed no Muslim slaves were to be brought back into Brazil. Because a group of them came in there and they kicked so much butt. They still remember it. They still remember it. South Carolina, North Carolina, wherever there were large numbers of Muslims coming in, they had trouble with revolting slaves. Now please understand now, I believe that Islam and Christianity have the same ingredients in it, because I think that Denmark Vesey as a Christian developed the same kind of power. Marcus Garvey coming in as a Christian began with the same kind of thing. So I don't think it's implicit. I think that one has to break out of certain other colonizing influences before they can use Christianity to make it work for them. And what is, listen, and the main thing that must be broken out of is the implicit white supremacy that's tied in with the symbolism that's Christianity. That's the problem. Now, hear me right now, because I know I'm in the Bible Belt and I know y'all shout and pray all the time. So I will listen. I want you to hear me right. Christianity in its fundamental epistemology and ontology and theology is an African religion.